dovetail into our second panel for the evening. We've so far in the first panel, and of course on the product innovation side, been focused around clinical, financial, operational excellence. The topics were carefully curated, to actually lead to this crescendo. Now we're actually going to talk about, how do you really get things up and running that are able to drive all these clinical, financial, and operational excellence that we spoke about. And we're looking at IT and technology in a little bit of a different flavor, with a little bit of a business spin to it. Normally, you'll have several IT applications, being put up and implemented inside hospitals. But we are now going to stay focused, at least in this conversation, around the role of IT in driving P&L of a hospital. Right? It's my absolute pleasure and delight to actually, just welcome a very esteemed panel on the stage. I'd first like to call upon Girish Kulkarni. Girish is the principal consultant at NIMHANS Digital Academy, and several years of some very tremendous experience behind it. Can we get the chair sorted? And one more chair on the stage. We sort this out. Next up, I'd also like to invite Mr. Bhoopendra Solanki. Bhoopendra is actually the CIO at Sakra World Hospital, and in a very glorious career spanning multiple decades, he's picked up greenfield initiatives, run transformations, driven adoption and EMRs and several other initiatives. It's a delight to have you with us, sir, this evening. Next up is Mr. Anthony Prem. Prem is the Chief Digital Officer, General Manager, and the Nodal Officer at St. John's National Academy of Health Sciences. Prem's been a very strong advocate of all things digital, and we were actually speaking about everything that he's looking to accomplish early in the day today, and there's a lot that he's driving. There's a lot that needs to be done, but there's a lot that's already been done, and hopefully we'll be able to get you to share some of those. Next up, Sudeep, the President of IT and the Chief Information Officer at HCG Hospitals. Good to have you, sir. I am going to avoid my hands touching anyone today because of a little bit of a situation. I've been told it's okay as long as I don't touch anybody. So, apologies. Yes, you can. And I think in the middle of IT leaders, we also have a couple of clinicians that are responsible for driving IT implementations. And the first up is Dr. Thanga, Prabhu, the Chief Medical Information Officer at Apollo Hospitals. Dr. Thanga has been a physician. He's been in GE and several of ours, and also my emergency care physician not too long ago, a few weeks ago, when I had a little bit of a concussion in my head while I was going to meet him. Thank you so much for coming all the way from Chennai for this one, Dr. Thanga. And last but definitely not the least, Dr. Vasudha, Shetty. She's the Senior Director of Business Operations at Manipal Hospitals. And I'm going to take one of these seats here. I'll reserve this to me. Dr. Vasudha has got several initiatives that she's driving at Manipal Hospitals, but fun fact, some of us were not here when we welcomed everybody. This group here, I think, is close to about 187 years of experience, under their belt. So it's going to be an interesting dialogue. I'll do my best as a humble facilitator to make sure all of us are. Please feel free to take your seats, and if I have your permission, I may have to cut down some conversations, to be able to just moderate this on time. It's a little.
You need to take away the mics from us. It's going to be difficult to stop once you have the mic.
Okay. I'll give you the nod, turn off the mic. Okay, so thanks so much for this evening here. There's a lot of interesting conversation that I think all of us have been having over several years. It's a pleasure to meet all of you together on stage for the very first time. I think we're going to be talking about a few things around EMR adoption and what lies beyond. But just as a little bit of a baseline setting, when you talk about EMRs in hospitals, on the maturity curve, you really start with saying, what is an EMR? You then start to the next stage is, I need an EMR. Then you will come around to say, let's evaluate a few EMRs, and this is the EMR I want, or I will build. The next stage is, let's implement this EMR. Then you talk about, drive adoption for this EMR. And we discussed about all the challenges and issues that come, with that phase. And I think we want to also get a little futuristic to say, what if, when the EMR is adopted, which is a theme for our chapter today, beyond EMR, what lies beyond EMR adoption? And I think on this stage here, we've got people across multiple levels of this maturity curve. So I'll do my best to just try to evoke some conversation there. I think I want to start with maybe for the clinician IT leaders, information officers. Just wanted to ask what some of your change management is something that we heard. It's big, it's massive, it's important. What are some of the initiatives that, let's say Dr. Vasudha, we'll start with you, that you might have picked up to drive a successful change management with your doctors that you were leading in embracing some sort of an IT or a digital project?
Thank you for your
There's another mic.
Thank you, Piyush, for giving me an opportunity to come on this session. So, going to the EMR adoption in Manipal Hospital, the first part, what you said, selecting a solution or a EMR product, which was already done when we thought of having a EMR adoption in the acquired erstwhile Columbia Asia hospitals and Vikram Hospital. So, we had a solution in place, the tracker. So, we didn't have that. That step of selecting the vendor, analyzing the product, so that was not there. It was only the implementation of the existing software into the newly acquired hospitals. Having said that, change is difficult to accept, and there is always a resistance to change. So we did encounter a lot of resistance from the clinicians and the user ends in adopting to the new EMR. In one of the hospital, it was a movement from paper to EMR, and in rest of the hospital, it was from one EMR to another EMR. So we had seen both the challenges. So coming to the strategies which we planned is, in the beginning itself, we were very transparent with the clinicians and the user ends. The reason we are going for the change in EMR, it is one organization, one software. So that was the only reason. It is not that the earlier software was not good or we had any problem with that software. It is only that we didn't want to have a different type of software within a network.
Sure.
And we did understand that there would be a resistance to change, and we accepted and respected that resistance, and we gave them enough time to understand that there is going to be a change, and we were with them throughout. There was a transparent communication with the clinicians by the senior leadership team at a frequent intervals why we need to go for a change in the software. Having said this, there were still we are facing the resistance from the clinicians in adopting the EMR. The data, what we found is that transferring of the data from the existing system to new system, or from paper to new system, is the biggest challenge, and we had to tackle that. Data cleaning, data verification, mapping of the legacy data with the new data, and rechecking it, data backup, server, and taking inputs from the clinicians about the data which is going to be uploaded from all the user end. So the healthcare industry data is very complex and it is huge. So what goes in comes out. So we were very clear that what goes in master data has to be thoroughly checked by all the users. So we took a special care of that data. It was a challenging step to call the consultants, ask them to go through the surgery course, lab course, radiology course, and take their input. Make sure that after launch what they see is what they have been discussed before. The second part is the training part. So the training plays an important role in the EMR adoption. And we had a challenge in making the users come for training in their busy schedule. But we, with the help of IT team, who are my colleagues sitting here, we did manage that. We took individual training, we took specialty-wise training, department-wise training, and we did role-based training. I think that role-based training did a lot of difference in our post-launch success. So the role-based training was done on the data on a trained server. So whatever data was supposed to be on a live server, we had put it in the trained server, and we gave them the glimpse of what is going to be there post-launch. So there was no surprises or shocks for them after the launch. Hardware support is equally important. One of the challenges is not only the software, we need to have good systems and a speedy internet. So we made sure that these are all in place. These challenges were addressed before the launch. we took a lot of input. Clinician participation was one of the key for our success. We made sure that from the beginning we had a discussion with the clinicians participatively that what should go. We customized the software as per the requirement of the clinicians and user end to extend whatever was possible by the IT team. So we did a lot of standardization, lot of formats we created which was acceptable to the clinician. We made the software quite simple for them to enter and made the data retrieval quite easy, and also made sure that the data is seen across all the network hospitals. And of course, good collaboration between the IT team and the operational team. We created a team where IT team were there, ops team were there, subject matter experts were there. Like I look into mainly clinician, doctor and nursing related requirement. We had a coding and pricing team involvement, materials team involvement, billing team involvement. So it was a teamwork, and all of us being on the same page and interacting with the clinicians and user to bring them on the page. Yeah, it was tough, but then our recent launches have been successful. And after implementation also, we are with the clinicians and the user end for complete 2 months, around 30 to 40 team members from the IT and operational. We spread across the hospital and we are there on a WhatsApp call or a WhatsApp message. We support them, and as you correctly said, is there in a periodic review? We have a review every day, if required, every week, every month for the first 3-4 months, and whatever suggestions, requests come from the clinicians, if it is permissible within that software, we do it. And if it is not possible, we transparently go and tell them there are some constraints in this software, we will not be able to do it. Yeah. And lastly, the clicks. Yeah, we also had this issues that multiple clicks are there, but thanks to our IT team again, wherever possible, we have reduced the clicks. It's not one click, but we have reduced the clicks. Yeah, so these are all the challenges we had. Mainly data and the training and getting clinician acceptance are the major challenges for implementation.
I mean, thanks for such comprehensive thoughts. Starting right from hardware, resource availability, all the way down to data. And I can personally vouch for the fact that when you're migrating EMRs, that you mentioned the master data management. That is so critical for patient safety. And I remember in one of my previous organizations, we used to actually build data interoperability platforms, solving issues of legacy data migration and multi-EMR connectivity. And just the amount of one issue in 1 million records was enough to derail the whole initiative. And people are like literally trigger happy to say this is not working, switch back to the old one, get that old one back up.
And we had multiple times listened this, can we give the paper or can we switch back to the older version?
Not surprised. But Dr. Vasudha, thanks so much.
Also one more thing which I forgot to tell is the interface. In hospital software, there are a lot of multiple interfaces are there. It's not only EMR. The LIS, the lab information system, has to give the data. PACS has to give the data. So for one particular patient, there are multiple interfaces are there. So making sure that these interfaces work within a fraction of a second, and the doctors get to see all the data, reports, radiology in a fraction of a second. It is quite a difficult task for the IT team to do it. But yeah, we have been able to.
Well, congratulations and good luck for the early phase of the post migration rollout. I think I've captured some things. I'm gonna hopefully come back if we have time later. Dr. Thanga, from your perspective, you were obviously in a very, very, very critical role at India's largest health system. I know you've got a couple of slides here if we can get those up, but your thoughts on bring up the slide.
So, I'm a ER physician to start with. After 9 years of practice in Abu Dhabi, I sort of went into healthcare IT because got pulled up in court for writing death certificate for a patient who was alive, right? And that's what the judge thought. But then I'll tell you, there's a unique problem in the Middle East. When the police find somebody without ID or they don't know the name of the person or a dead body, they'll either give it to me as a blank sheet or they'll write Muhammad, because Muhammad is a common name in the Middle East. So I have written death certificates for many Muhammads. Now how do I know which Muhammad is alive and which Muhammad is dead? Yeah. So they let me go. They asked me to give it in writing. I gave it in writing. But then that made me think, if I am seeing one such case, how many are slipping through the cracks? And that was the time when, this is very early, 97, 98, when internet was just coming into Abu Dhabi. So we sort of digitized the ER in Alain Hospital in Abu Dhabi. We put in systems, and for the first time we got census. And the initial reaction was, no, this is not true, you got it wrong. So we were seeing 350 patients per day in the emergency department, 2 doctors. So we were very sure, we said data never lies. We stand by what we have seen. And the director luckily was a Canadian. So this fellow then doubled the workforce. That made me think, this is the power of data. If you can actually use data, we can do an objective evaluation of a system and move it across. And that's how I got into, I went to Swansea University, did my master's in health informatics, worked in the NHS for 6 months, then joined GE Healthcare. Since 2005, I've been doing this. I can tell you change management is a real challenge, and there are various reasons for it. Generally, IT deployments fail. The percentage of IT deployments failing is generally very high. Healthcare is a leader there. You take the 10 billion pounds that the UK spent when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister. I am a culprit, I was part of that. It's
I think it was 22 billion.
We didn't say that to everybody.
I was one cog in the wheel in that field setup as well.
And similarly in the US also, they spent close to $10 billion when Obama was there. So the general perception is, oh no, this doesn't work in healthcare, just get rid of it, let's move on. But nobody, was thinking why it was failing until a few clinicians, starting from the nurses, got into health informatics, because this is our domain, right? If a third person comes in and tries to understand my domain, it's very difficult. They just don't get it. Okay, but when the people who are actually doing the job, I call IT as my another knee hammer. Right? I have plenty of tools when I'm working. It's my choice. I can use it. I can ignore it. So IT to me is just another tool. Right? It can't be everything. But when you look at it from an organization perspective, there's a lot of money spent, millions of dollars spent on this. Failure should not be an option. The more you fail, it sends out a wrong message outside. And I've heard, I'm an advisor to the Government of India. I'm one of the authors of the EMR standards, interoperability standards. More than once I've heard this comment from very, very senior leaders, IAS officers. India is a poor country. We can't afford to do these things, which even the Western countries have failed. So I said, sir, I'm sorry to say, India was never a poor country. And just because somebody didn't do it doesn't mean we should not do it, right? And today, this is the only country which has actually published EMR interoperability standards document in 2013. We are so proud of it. The only country in the world. So for somebody who doesn't know anything about EMR interoperability standards, it's a very small document. Pick it up. It's on the Government of India's website. Go through it and you know what exactly we are talking. It was revised in 2016, so the government is using it now very widely. Now, coming back to where we started change management, I was trained by GE Healthcare. I'm a very proud employee. 10 years I did in JWTC in Whitefield. They taught us what is implementation. So it's a 1-week program called CAP, Change Acceleration Process. We use human psychology to go into why people resist change. And to start with, the trainer said, if you introduce a change and there is no resistance, it's only one of two things. Either the guy has decided not to do it, or he says, you're the boss, I will do what you want. So expecting resistance to change is normal. That's where you begin. Now you try and understand why there is resistance. It can be one of three things: technical, political, attitude. Let's take technical. How much time do I have?
Not a lot.
I can keep talking.
Not a lot, if I might say.
Okay. So technical is very simple. The systems that we use today are glorified typewriters. Okay? A challenge to my non-medical colleagues. Show me one doctor who is sitting 9 to 5 and working. The medical profession is a mobile profession. In my department, I can't even stand, leave alone sitting. It's a job where you keep running from patient to lab to front office you keep moving around. You don't use a system like in an office. The typewriters were used in office. So it went through its evolution, and today's computer is a glorified typewriter. So the technology has to catch up, okay? And thanks to these guys, they are actually doing something which we thought will never happen, because the next close thing which we are used to in G healthcare is Dragon, naturally speaking. And you know the limitation. Dragon works only in radiology, and the capture rate is like 60 or 62%. As compared to that, this was like a wow. So the technology part, it's quite complicated, but it's important. It's actually the small part. It can be sorted. The political is when you introduce a change, a lot of political things happen. You have to be ready for that. You need to map it out so that you are expecting that and you manage it. Attitude is, some people are just like that, right? This is what I've been doing for 20 years. Who are you to tell me what to do? I will not do it. So that's where you have to bring in the management, carrot and stick, and get it. But like they say, yield. In England, when you get into the road, on the road it will be marked yield. That means when you are entering a freeway, don't just butt in like how they do it here. You gently get it, yield. So sustained effort and working with the clinicians hand in hand. I am in Scrubs in Chennai. I live out of Chennai, so I work in the emergency department. So to them, I'm not an IT guy. No, he's one of us guy. So that bond for me has to be there. And when you introduce a technology to them, they're very happy to use it. So we are gone from the generation where people didn't understand technology. Today, kids are playing around on mobile phones. So the adoption is there. So like that, change management is important. I'm very new to Apollo. I've just been there for 1.5 years. But it's a great organization. What I see is it's teamwork. Right from the top, right? Your top management has to be behind you. If you don't have that backing, very soon somebody is going to kill this effort. So all the way from the top to bottom, and it's not a one-day's job. It's something you need to do. Keep doing again and again and again. So we are now doing our EMR. We are rebuilding our EMR. We are following Agile. So every 2 weeks there is a change. And when a change happens, I have 73 hospitals across India. So we are ready for that. My IT team is on the job. My operations team is on the job. We have L1, L2, L3 level. So that, we expect when you make a tweak, some pieces here and there will start becoming wobbly. You support. You encourage the clinicians. So that's how you have to manage it. Change management is very, very important if you don't want to waste the dollars, waste the money that has been spent across public sector, private sector, here, international, everywhere. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. I think an important thing on what you mentioned on change management, it's not a one-day job. They say it's progress, not perfection. You measure on a daily basis. Maybe if we can kill the slide for now. We'll come to this one later. I think I'm going to now, just move to the non-clinician one. And maybe Bhoopendra, if I can, start with you. You've obviously implemented a lot of initiatives in all the hospitals that you work with. When you're looking at driving an implementation, from start all the way to finish, at a framework level, how would you break down, or what are some of the guiding philosophies and principles for you to break down into simple things? Because they say the only way to eat an elephant is one piece at a time. So any thoughts on like a guideline framework? Because there's several IT colleagues here as well.
Yeah, in healthcare, many operations are there. So we started working on self-help concept. So where we can give the more things to the patient hand without compromising the clinical care. So in that segment, like two portion we divided, IPD journey and OPD journey. So OPD journey contains this EMR as well. So like EMR, it should not a single thing. If patient history coming, previous history or previous prescription coming into the EMR, then it will be very easy for the doctor to fill the, just modify one or two things and reprinting or reissuing the EMR. So that way, EMR, online appointment, this QMS system. So entire journey we are looking in one segment as a OPD patient, as well as for IPD patient also we are segregating. But before moving all those solutions, we always talk to the clinicians, medical director, to get in touch in close contact so that we can get an idea, right idea what they want actually. Like EMR acceptance also somewhere 80% in our organization is going on, and in our case it is not like that. If the senior doctor is not using or junior doctor is not using, it is just a habit, a kind of. And EMR should come as a culture. Like if you talk about note down something, then we took pen and paper. So same way they should collect the digital asset like mobile, iPad or tab if they want to note down some information. So EMR should come as a culture, then this adaptability issue will be gone from across the healthcare. So that is the main motive where the clinicians will support. Management already started to support the IT system or entire this clinical journey as well as the transformation of the processes. Somehow the patient side also, this previous panelist mentioned that thing. Like patient is saying a doctor is busy in with the screen, not attending the patient, or eye contact is not there. We as a Japanese culture, we do the everyday this feedback of patients, assessment of feedback. So where we found like many patients reported who's doing the 100% EMR, for those doctor is not talking to us with eye contact. He is doing something on computer and just ask them, you can leave in 5 minutes. We paid full amount, but he not even touched, not interacted and all. So patient also understand in that manner. They have to support to bring this technology, because doctor is doing for them only, not he's watching some game or nothing. So those challenges are coming in EMR adoption.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very consistent theme that we hear everywhere. Every city we do this chapter, every meeting we go to, the doctor is not looking at the patient. Forget about looking, not touching. Obviously, in the old Indian, you mentioned India was never a poor country, still is not. I'm a big believer in all the centuries-old traditions of Ayurveda, right? A very trained Ayurvedic doctor could touch your pulse. I've been fortunate as a very young kid. I've been blessed to have spent some time with somebody. He would see my pulse for 10-11 seconds and said, "Beta kal mirchi ka chal khaya tha." Down to that level of specificity. But I think the important thing is, one thing that you mentioned that really stuck out was EMR as a culture. I think I'm gonna if I have your permission, maybe just quote that some of my follow-up conversations as well. But thanks so much. I'm gonna dovetail Prem, over to you maybe. In the broader EMR maturity curve, you're not on this side for sure, and you've got a long road ahead. How are you looking at driving through the process?
First of all, thanks for having me here, Piyush and Vasudha and the Augnito. We have just implemented our new HIS, and we have 2 dogs on board here. So I basically come from, I would say that I've jumped across different industries for the past 20 years, from software to IT to banking to non-healthcare. Having seen all that, I did a basic observation on how doctors interact with the patients. So I find the 3 things very unique. So it is my observation, so doctors here please don't regret. First thing is, doctors have very fine motor skills. Right? So they are able to kind of do the procedures or switching or whatever you call as. That's the first part. And the second part is they have mental dexterity, which means that they are able to analyze complex problems and also take critical decisions, because it is a matter of life and death. And the third part is a repeated exposure and experience to all these things. So what it basically does is their mind works very fast, right? And with all these fine motoring skills, they are able to develop what basically is called as a muscle memory.
Yeah.
So when they write a prescription, it means that their thought is so fast. Normally you see a line, you don't understand anything. Right? So when you take them to a pharmacist, then he understands. And if he doesn't understand, he'll ask you, okay, do you have cold? So why did you go to the doctor? Right? So he is able to get the medicine. So when I look at the organization like St. John's, where we are looking at about 2,500 people on a daily basis, plus around 900 to 1,000 patients. It will be difficult for them to change Okay, so I think I heard a conversation in the previous panel that amicable to change. So the critical thing is, for them it is very easy to kind of write it out on a paper rather than giving them something to type, which requires so much focus. This is also basically derails the patient time as one. Yeah, the doctor has to spend more time with the patient, and it has a cascading effect on the patient who is waiting. So this is one of the serious challenges that I foresee when we are going to EMR, and basically we are trying to figure out what other solution can help. Right? So actually, I had a vision that once the doctor talks to the patient in a conversational way, so automatically things get recorded. And I think that I've seen it through your wish list. That could be one of the probable solutions. But I would go one step beyond that as well, wherein I get to order the medicines directly using speech. Sure. So it's a long way ahead, and we are working on how to make this happen in our hospital.
That particular wish list item, we spoke about 20 clicks down to 1 click, sort of showed something. That particular wish list item, I'll hold off on my notes, but I'll come back.
With all these technologies which are there, and talking about clicks, I think it's a bit crazy. We have to remove the clicks in the first place.
I think just this number of clicks reduction is such a critical metric that products are solving these days, and especially healthcare. With doctors, we are busy with you mentioned the word they've got tremendous mental dexterity, but not necessarily device dexterity.
If they slow down the thoughts, right, they cannot get into the next action.
Yeah.
So that is a problem. Yeah. So it has been there for them for the long years. So it is difficult for them to change immediately when you say, okay, now you have to enter it. It's not going to happen.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your time. So I'm going to move to the seventh panel. Sudeep, maybe question for you. Amongst initiatives that you've driven, maybe let's pick any clinician facing technology. We sort of focused in the previous panel on how you will assess, evaluate, identify whether a tool makes sense or not. But let's say once you've delivered it, and we talk about outcomes on the financial side, the topic is driving P&L. Can you share any examples where it might have contributed either to the bottom line or the top line for any initiative that you might have driven?
So, I recently launched an OPT management tool, and we were faced with, first of all, I like to concur with whatever the panelists have said, and I completely agree when you say, sir, that it is stakeholder management, stakeholder analysis to be done before we get into introducing or even conceiving anything in systems, and that is true of any industry, and we did the same. And intrinsically, I have not found older doctors even saying no to technology now. Yes. However, we are also cognizant of the fact that one of my doctors, and there are several of them in the network, who visit 5 clinics in the same vicinity because they get briefed in one. Then they move to the patient who is, I call it is patient centricity. The patient is seated there. They treat, come back, again get a briefing, seat, discuss, hold the hand, explain, come back. And in the last 3 to 4 weeks, I have met 4 such doctors in 4 different units.
Wow.
Yeah. So, despite, and the doctors I'm speaking about, the moment I talked about stakeholder management, the moment I said that, look, doctor, they are I'm sure it is happening in all other healthcare providers. We are very strongly believing in a multidisciplinary team being treating cancer. I'm from HCG, and the MDT is a very, very high focus for us. Now, and I know every time they have to consult 4 more doctors in 4 more areas, as distant as genomics even. So, having heard that, I said, doctor, it is important for you to have notes. When I explained that these are the 4 things you primarily do, you find out about what is happening, you either give a medicine or give a test or refer a doctor or say get admitted. These are the only 4 things you need to do. They were all in. But at the same time, the cognizance of these many patients, this full of room was there for one doctor. How do you, even if he's saying he's willing from inside, like the doctor you had mentioned that you had a dinner with at 8 and then he had around 20-30 patients to look at. I think there has to be something to be done for such people.
Yeah.
Right. And similarly, while you are in areas where a therapy is on, our EMR, I would not say exclusive, but we have a lot of integrations with devices even. Radiotherapy is integrated to EMR for us. Even digital pathology is integrated to EMR. The results are flowing into EMR. That is a requirement in MDT. So, under such circumstances, it is very important during therapy also there has to be, while you are treating, how do you type?
Yeah.
Will you have somebody doing it for you? No, your team is involved with you in the therapy. If you look at the, a medic, he or she in your team will know which equipment to pass. So with that kind of coordination, as even Anthony was saying, the computer is only an add-on, or any other device for that matter is an add-on. The only thing which comes in handy is you can at least speak and you can get there. So that is where our pitch has been. Some of our very renowned clinicians and even Vishal has been practicing it. And we are stepping together. None of my clinicians have said we don't want to use the system. But it is on to us to understand and empathize that they are to be aided with some more technology, which is not resident on devices per se, which is up there somewhere.
Yeah.
This is what we are doing.
It's amazing because there's about one thing that was very interesting and two things that resonate very well with us. The interesting thing was about the doctor actually going from one room to the other, constantly running around. And there's obviously the problem that the doctor's looking at the computer, not looking at the patient, and here's doctor literally running around. It's sort of Dr. Thanga, what you mentioned, right?
Dr. Thanga said,
yeah.
They are not resident. They can't even handle it. One of the doctors, they said that how are you feeling? How will you feel it?
Yeah.
There's no device they can carry.
Yeah, no, I mean, see, that's the amazing part of I think hospital operations, because it's like avoidable harm. Right? There's so much that goes behind that you will never see to give you that one encounter with the doctor that drives some outcomes. But I think the two things that resonate very well with us is you spoke about physician burnout. Right? There's like 20-30 patients waiting to be seen, and how much time, as much as you want to give time to the patient, you're also cognizant about the patient wait times. And we discussed a bunch of business metrics in the previous panel. And the last thing that you said about the only thing that you can do is speak. And when we talk about VUI as a concept, this is an IT analytical panel. We talk about in the 80s, 90s, mainframes were moving to Windows. There was a GUI revolution, a graphic user interface. We're currently going through and sort of leading that charge on a VUI or a voice user interface. And speaking is literally the most natural way for humans to communicate. So if humans, we're communicating over conversation, so why can't you communicate to your machine over a conversation? And I think that's the sort of ownership that we also take in helping shape the future. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Girish, I'm gonna now dovetail to you. And I remember that you asked me, what would you do if I don't stop talking?
No, Thanga has already taken that.
No, but I think in terms of some of the initiatives that you've obviously done multiple roles, obviously with your initiatives with Chime as well. You probably have come across stories and situations from across countries, across hospitals, big, small, corporate, federated, decentralized, centralized, or whatever. When you're looking at explaining to the end user the value impact that it might drive, the end user of a technology is one. There could be a sponsor, there could be a champion, there could be a beneficiary, there could eventually be the patient that is, the downstream cascaded impact, like Prem mentioned earlier. Can you talk about some of these systems from your experience?
Well, sure. But before that, I don't know, Rustam just walked out at the right time, but I just wanted to say that I am actually jealous of him. Because you don't get to see such pretty patients with whom you can maintain eye contact and then, do the consultation for a long time so that the patient is comfortable. Okay. Having said this, yes, from a outcome perspective, now I would go by the question what you were asking me, and then you said, or you referred to the patient at the end of the chain. Sorry, the patient's got to be at the top of the chain, and we need to understand that. Okay, and as long as we understand that we are patient-centric, rest all what you do is going to be beneficial to the patient. Automatically, it is going to translate to better outcomes. And it's good that we've shifted focus from the conversation around, doctor and the patient and how many clicks do I do. If I have to get into that, I have my own arguments, because when they were writing on paper, they would still have to flick back 20 pages, 30 pages. Nobody ever complained about it. Why are you complaining now when you have to click 8 times, right? So I have my own arguments against and for it. But then, as I said, patient centricity is going to be the key today. And in this journey of patient centricity, if I can enhance his or her experience during the entire course of the encounter or the episode, that would what translate to better outcome for me. Because even let's talk of OP, which is where you just walk in and then you finish your consultation, you're done, you pick up your medicines, and then you pick up your patient advice and you walk out. But then if you do things right, you reduce wait times for him or her. You reduce the number of times he has to crisscross, go to the billing, because you're working on a prepaid mode. You are not expecting the patient to run to the billing every time you ask for a new test or a new order. That is what translates to a shorter wait time for the patient. Shorter the wait time, he feels better, because he's already in pain and duress when he came to you. So you expect him to run to the billing counter and stand in the queue 5 times? Right. No, you don't do that. So having said this, these are very small initiatives what you need to do to enhance the experience, which in turn will translate to better outcomes. Because if he's happy and he's satisfied with you, it's the word of mouth which gets you more business.
Yeah.
More business, more footfalls, more walk-ins, more revenues. Right? Top line, bottom line is not the point here, but it is definitely more revenues for you.
Absolutely.
Right? So look at these kind of smaller initiatives, and these smaller initiatives are basically your low-hanging fruit, and they are easier to achieve. They don't take too much of a time, they don't need too much of an investment, but at the same time, the customer satisfaction and the customer satisfaction index is always going higher, right? So do things which will benefit. One of the things, yes, is the patient with the doctor engagement.
Yeah.
Right? And we've spoken through the evening about it. So I'm not going to be revisiting that, because that is definitely an experience which carries a lot of weight, because that is the heart of the entire encounter. But if I can make things right for the patient around that interaction with the doctor and make it as good, as seamless, and as comfortable, then I have actually won the war. 1. 2, from again an outcome perspective today, my take is a little different here, and I would want to go back as to why most of the EMRs, most of the HISs probably have not delivered the kind of ROI it needs to, or it would have been envisaged to deliver. And the fundamental reason is most of the platforms, products which we work today are compartmentalized. I haven't seen, with very little experience of mine, I have not seen a platform or a product which moves along with the patient. Oh, This is billing. No, you have to use the pharmacy module here. Why should somebody even make the patient feel like that?
Yeah.
Right? You have your processes, you have your workflows, which will define and take you through this journey. And the encounter actually follows the patient wherever he goes and ends with the patient. It is a better outcome for you.
Yes.
Be it OP, IP, better average length of stay, better R2, whatever you want to speak about. Ultimately, people talk about EBITDA without even getting to know what exactly it means. But then, those are jargons which are used in the hospitals, and I bet every one of these indexes are going to improve, and that would lead to better outcomes if you work on the patient and his experience, and fundamentally working on patient centricity.
No, thank you so much, and thanks for calling me out on putting the patient at the end. What I really meant was, there's a lot that you need to do with keeping the patient at the forefront, but everything operationally needs to be put in place for the patient to actually deliver or get the benefit. But I think there's one more analogy from the aviation sector. Sorry, I've been a consultant, done a bunch of engagements there. You mentioned, the initiatives that actually work are the ones that are small. They can add impact, and this is one of India's leading airlines. Their erstwhile CEO used to run personally an innovation agenda where he would reward situations like you could do $1 million $1 innovations rather than doing just $1 million innovation. And I think that's really something that always transgresses across industries, across situations. And Rustom's nodding vigorously because when we are doing human-centered design, it's like these little things that matter. We were talking. This evening has been for some reason a number of clicks, but there's so many more touch points. That whole user journey that we really need to carve out. On that user journey, when you said the technology follows the patient, I might comment that I have seen something like that, even if not in India, but it's almost like my patient app, I finish off the consult, the doctor's entered an order,
They don't go back to your MPS RX base.
This is not from there. Not from there, but it actually keeps following the patient.
Yeah.
Notifications coming, pop, will,
Exactly.
move around, perfect.
You gave an analogy, I'll give you another one. And this is something which I actually did learn and I've tried to adapt in everything I do. And that's something which happened in 2013, courtesy Sakra. Sat with the board and then had a huge budget and all the Japanese were around and I started, we need a HIS and we need an AMR and we need to do this. So one of the gentlemen actually said, hold. I said, why? Why do you need a software to do all this? I said, what? Why do you need a software to do all this? What exactly do you mean, sir? Could you please tell me what it is? He said, Girish, do you know that Toyota has recently launched our 1 hour quick service in India? I said, yes. So let me give you an analogy. I go with my car, I leave it for service, they look at what is wrong in it, whatever little things they can analyze and fix, they fix it and they deliver this to me in the 57th minute and I walk out exactly in 1 hour. That is Toyota's commitment and that's the Toyota way of doing things. I said, wonderful. But why are you telling me this? He said, that's exactly what happens with your OP process. The patient comes, he meets the doctor says, do 1, 2, 3, 4 so that I can get to know your problem better, and I did all that and then I sent him out. Fine. Then if the doctor says, no, you need to get admitted, that's when I put my car in the service center and then you work on it, you open the engine, you open the clutch, you do whatever you have to do and 3 days later you discharge him. That's my IP process. Correct? I said, yes, correct. That's exactly what happens in the hospital. Oh, well, for the last almost 90 years we've been doing with Kanban systems and we don't use any software. Now, how does it sound? The most complex process of running and managing a car is still being handled across the globe by Toyota on punch cards. What are we talking of technology? Right? So, that is when I started thinking, how do I actually make these things simpler, easier? It could be ultimately boiling down to voice-enabled clinician interfaces. But then the fact is, making it simple, keeping it small, make it simple, make it straight, make it transparent, and that is what will help you in your adaptation journey.
No, 100%. And I think, there's obviously lots of stories from lots of industries, but we're all healthcare professionals, so we'll come back to healthcare. And my apologies for constantly just going up in the air. I do want to be a little respectful of time. We're hitting 9 o'clock, so maybe one last question to you, Dr. Thanga. There's a slide that you put together. I'd love for you to share. Yes, if it is possible, that might just be useful. Dr. Thanga, my question is really, how your experience with Augnito has been, and if there are any aspects that you'd like to share with us. You can actually grab some seats here.
Just a few slides. So, role of IT in, stay on the first slide please. So the title actually caught my eye, Beyond EMR Adoption. We are not even 100% on the EMR adoption. If you get something like 50 to 60% adoption, it's accepted as a success. 100% nobody has achieved in the world, right? So we are talking actually about beyond EMR adoption. So we are not waiting for 100% EMR adoption, but we are thinking, okay, now that I have these many guys on EMR, what are the things that I can do with that, right? And what is the role of IT in driving the hospital PMO? So my role is a very interesting role. I am the Chief Medical Information Officer, and I'm the first and the only CMIO in India. There's no equivalent role in any other organization in India. So in a way, I am actually defining the role here. In the US, it is well established. So I have two bosses. One is the CIO, the Chief Information Officer. The other is the Group Medical Director. So 80% I am on the clinical side. So the Group Medical Director defines, patient safety, patient experience. How do we constantly strive to bring down the TQM that Girish is talking about? Like, as the patient walks into the hospital, how do we assure that he walks out of the hospital? If you look at the ICU numbers, generally in my previous company when we did it, we were shocked to see that there was a 60% chance that the guy will not walk out of the hospital in India, in corporate hospitals, in Bangalore. So that's where we said, oops, that's really bad, because there's so many things which can go wrong and do go wrong. Sepsis is one thing which takes away most of the patients, so we got into detecting and doing the sepsis bit. So the role of IT is very big. IT, like my CIO calls it, my CIO is Ashokan, ex-Columbia Asia Hospital. He built the EMR for them, and now he's helping us build one in Apollo. He calls IT the plumbing. So the other problem that we have is, if there's no water in the faucet, call the IT fellow. If the server is down, call the IT fellow. If the mic doesn't work, call the IT fellow. I said, boss, how many things will you load on to us? And why are you guys keeping quiet? Just tell them this is not my job, but you don't have that option. So the role of IT is very critical. Next slide, please. So this is just a bunch of things as barriers to EMR implementation, specifically in India. I'll just let you read it. I'm not going to read through it. So it's actually a lot, and we are still discovering more and more things coming up. The good thing is many of them, self-heal, and it moves on. The trick is to work with the clinicians, put yourself in the shoes of the clinicians, and I'm so happy to hear many of you are agreeing with me that the clinician workforce is not a static workforce. They are not sitting, and they don't have the luxury of sitting and typing. Anything you do, so the new EMR that we are building, they ask me, Doc, what do you want? I have a 300-member team. Some of the best engineers are working for us in India and abroad. I told them, minimal or 0 clicks. If you can achieve 0 clicks, that's a wow. But at least try to aim for that, and if you make it minimum or reduce the number of clicks, then the clinicians are happy to work on it. The other thing is, navigation through the screens, right? That's another pain point. Why do you have to log in every time? I just don't get it, right? And look at it, you have to remember your username. I don't know how many of you do that, but I have a notepad on which I have like 100, usernames and passwords.
Let's find that.
Everybody does that, right? So, yeah, next slide please. This is just some numbers. This my team pulled up. I don't know the source, but I believe it's credible. It's not from my organization, it's across. And look at the graph. So without Augnito, this is the cost: doctor, consultant, nurses, medical transcriptionist, secretary, others. Without Augnito, that is the cost. With Augnito, this is the cost. I'll just leave you with that graph. This is powerful technology that we are experiencing. Fortunate to be working with these guys, and with all the dreams that we had working as clinicians. I'm a ER guy, so we are transforming the ER now. In the ER, you definitely can't expect somebody to type. So there, it's all about voice. We have voice to text input, we have voice navigation, and what they showed it to you. As you talk, it will populate the EMR. So this is the way to go, and I'm sure this is going to evolve in a very big way. And I don't know how many years people will be surprised that we were still looking at the screen and clicking on this mouse and navigating. That's the future. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandra. I really appreciate this. Honestly speaking, public confession, I had no idea about these numbers here. So thank you. We'd love to see if we can put these in to a case study. But I think if you want, we can grab a few seats again for a couple of minutes. There's a lot of talk that we had today about what transformational things could come out when technology is adopted, and we've spoken about the whole maturity curve on the EMR adoption journey. Everybody at every stage of that. I probably want to just talk about a hypothetical situation. This is something that I love talking about, and maybe this is just improving, let's say, a discharge process. There's other core things that as part of our product design, user experience team, we keep deliberating how do we make an impact. But let's say it's a average. We've been speaking about ALOS, a 3-day procedure. Due apologies to all clinicians in the house. I'm not a doctor, but I'll try and do my best, just like we put together earlier. Let's say your first day is admissions, you're doing investigations, you're preparing for surgery. Let's say the next day you've got consults, in progress rounds, vitals capture, preoperative checklist processes and stuff. And because the topic is with an undercurrent of P&L, there's money that you're making there, right? Day 2, let's say, is the actual surgery. So there's OT charges, there's consultant charges, CCU, HTU. Hopefully none of the critical care that might need to get accelerated, medicines, etc. Day 3 is, let's say you're okay, 24 hours later you're good to go home, but it's bed pans, consumables, medicines. You're making revenue, but is that the best use of that particular revenue per bed that day? Maybe not. And in the current scheme of things, discharges end up happening even at like 2 o'clock if you're really lucky. At times it stretches to 4 or 5. During COVID, my wife and I had our second baby. We were out of the hospital at 11:30 in the morning. Right? That's obviously never going to happen again. But I think what this really means is the third day, if you can hasten the discharge, it's an opportunity. Because if the discharge is only happening at the end of the day, the next patient with the same ALOS and the same revenue cycle is only going to start day 1 on actual day 4. So now, if for instance, if we dovetail into the opportunity, it's a little bit of a graphic. This is the morning after discharge or morning of the discharge. The doctors come in, let's say hypothetically it's post-capital surgery, day 3 review. I'll try and sound clinically intelligent, but apologies, I won't be able to. Doctor comes in, walks in 9 o'clock, bed number 1, you've got 11, beds to, make rounds on. The current process is busy, there's like an entourage that comes with like 4 or 5 people. The junior most person is a nurse and an RMO, is busy scribbling down things, hoping that, as part of, the teaching that they're going through, they're not missing out a capture, left does not get captured as right, and a lot of these things. You finish off 11 beds and then somebody's furiously tuck, just entering data, and then, there's all the processing happening subsequently or whatever. And let's say the doctor really wants an echo for bed number 1, and if the echo is normal, whatever the clinically relevant thing is, it's okay to discharge. It's as simple as that. But we were talking about interoperability. How do you make sure systems talk to each other? It's a simple thing to make sure that if you need to activate an echo, somebody needs to bring a cow or a device, put the probes on, get the echo done, within 15-20 minutes, things are sorted, you've gone home. Now, by the time the doctor finishes bed 11, let's say it's about an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes, by the time the notes start getting entered, hopefully it's first in, first out, at times it could be last in, first out. The patient and the carer are now struggling, saying, doctor साहब ने बोला था कि सिर्फ echo ECG करना है, तो अभी तक कोई आया क्यों नहीं? And they're starting to, bother the nursing station. It's serious, like yes. Let's say, we were talking about, speech. You're basically just saying post-cabin surgery, day 3 review, no external effusions, patient is walking, 30 feet without assistance, 100 feet with assistance, heart rate, lung function, etc., normal. Discharge if echo is normal. You make that free speech. You saw a little bit of the ambient thing. There's an NLP classification that just populates the EMR. If there's interoperability across cath lab and all your internal systems, CPOE systems, orders get processed. By the time the doctor is finished dictating and literally moving to the second bed, there's somebody from cardiology that knows that patient on bed number 3716 needs an echo. They started wheeling the cow to the bedside. By the time the doctor is on patient on bed number 2, you mentioned about walking the journey with the user. You spoke of the patient context as a clinician context. You're on bed number 2. You're taking a look at the patient, dictating the second bedside note. Just test is executed. Boom! Notification comes in saying 3716 test is ready. Doctor immediately clicks saying, okay, report is fine, approved for discharge. And suddenly boom, 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 systems get activated. Discharge today is actually typed. When you talk about discharge summary, it's a big use case for us. Like every hospital here is using Augnito to type discharge summaries amongst their customer base. But in future, discharges will actually be generated rather than typed out when there's interoperability. Suddenly generate discharge. While you're on bed number 3, review, approve, sign off. Medications ordered, pharmacy triggered, billing activated, automated systems with insurance exchanges. And in the future, by the time the doctor is done on bed number 4, hopefully, the patient is out of the hospital. Now what this does on day 3 is, that is potentially a 10 a.m. discharge. You can wheel in your next patient, count that day 3 as day 1, and crunch down one day, and improve your operational efficiency. So this is a lot. I just wanted to leave this, provocation here of what technology could really drive. I've been absolutely blessed and honored, to have, such esteemed, panelists on the stage, this evening. I do hope all of you were able to, just learn from each other and, also, get a few thoughts provoked. And back as a request to everybody there, there are reflection cards again on the table, especially for those running ops, running IT, running administration. There's a lot that is available out there for you to embrace and learn. One thing I always tell to my teams, to the people I work with, at times something like this could be very daunting. It's like, there is no way I'm going to be able to eat that elephant. But remember, it's always one piece at a time, and you will get there. It's like what Girish you mentioned. Pick up those smaller initiatives. It's those $1 million, $1 initiatives that will make $1 million rather the other way rather than the other way around. With that, any final thoughts?
I have one small announcement to make. So, St. John's, we are celebrating our Diamond Jubilee this year.
Congratulations.
So, on 12th of August, so we have a function presided by our CM. So, it starts around 10:30, so all are welcome to participate.
Thank you so much for that announcement. With that, there's dinners right outside, so I really want to thank all of you on behalf of all of us at Augnito.